the point would be that Muhammad's experience, he came and said, I've witnessed an angel, and then someone else told him it was Jibril, and that's his experience, his subjective experience. So when he brings that back to the people, he says, oh, I've had this experience, and they say, oh, okay, and then they believe him.
So do you believe that these people didn't witness things happening in their own life over the course of 23 years of this revelation? Do you think that they didn't witness, like, when there was wars happening, or when there was change happening with people, or the fact that he just survived for as long as he did and do you think they didn't witness a man basically going from what I would call a state of non-existence, in a sense that, you know, they knew who he was as far as like the tribal stuff, and they knew him as an honest person and so on, to basically having Islam go all over the world? Do you think they didn't witness that? I mean, to me, I think you're really discounting what happened. I think you're under this impression that, like, bam, he received revelation, and then, you know, bam, like everybody just took his word for it without actually seeing things unfold.
Oh no, not everybody did take his word for it. You know, many people said, no, this is nonsense. Like the Jews at the time said, no, we don't believe this, and they fought him. And a lot of the poets at the time criticized him, and he had them killed.
Well, okay, I wouldn't necessarily jump to that, right? I wouldn't jump to criticism equals death. I think that we have to explore, you know, so like that's like not an okay statement to say, because that's
I'm sure there were different circumstances.
Yeah,
Beyond what I just said, you know.
Yeah, so I would say that all these people, both his enemies and his companions, witnessed Islam and witnessed the revelation, whether or not it was directly or indirectly. So, like, for example, his companion Abu Bakr directly witnessing the revelation, his other companions directly witnessing the revelations come down. Whether that
no one saw Jibril.
They saw him in human form.
Sorry?
They saw him in human form.
But they didn't recognize him as an angel.
Right, but the Prophet ﷺ explained who that was. Of course, they didn't recognize him as an angel. They recognized him as a human being. How could you recognize someone as an angel when you've never seen an angel before?
Well, I wouldn't know.
Recognition would be like, I've seen it before, so now I recognize. Not only that, they don't understand the cultural contexts of what was happening at the time. And again, this isn't from an apologetic standpoint. This is purely from somebody looking from the outside, uncleanly, like very with filthy eyes, and saying, look, can you guys imagine that this is actually happening, and this person is actually conducting himself in that manner, you know? And then now what's happening is you're associating that to, well, this certainly can't be a prophet of God, right? And to me, it's not a good thing for you as someone who is, I would hope that you're someone who's interested in seeking truth, right? And I would hope that if you came across these issues, that you would seek out exactly the scholarship and the knowledge from the sources that were closest to him, such as either his companions. So, like, let me give you an example. Abu Bakr was not, radiallahu anhu, he was not an idiot, okay? He was respected in the community. So what you're saying is that everybody, including the Prophet ﷺ, was insane. The community was well aware of the marriage. The father, the guardian, was well aware of the marriage.
Oh yeah. That's
stuff. It's a crazy, just perish the thought. It's crazy that somebody who doesn't understand what's going on is thinking that everyone else is crazy that does understand what's going on. And they lived it. And then you have Aisha's testimony, which are, you know, teaching our scholars You know, she taught people for many years after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, and never, not once did she complain. Not once. So it's kind of bizarre to think of it any further than just that, right? Even on the reports of the hadith where she expressed jealousy, it was like normal jealousy because he had multiple wives, right? But to now think that there was something that was egregious that was conducted to her in any way, shape, or form, I think is a massive stretch. And I think what's happening is, in the same way that you're experiencing Islamophobia, you're transmitting that and internalizing that into Islam. And I don't think you should do that to yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to commit any polemics against your beliefs. It's not. I find that that's completely unproductive.
I agree, but you've done it. Yeah, you know, you say you
Well,
don't, but
you asked me how I came to my position, and yeah,
well,
I didn't want to be
no, no, no. But I appreciate your honesty. And all seriously, I really do, because otherwise, like, if you're hiding a layer behind, then we're not being we're just, it's just a fruitless conversation, dude. Like,
Hmm.
you know, if we're true and honest with one another, and look, I got nothing to hold back, dude. You know what my scripture is. It's right in front of you. You can read it yourself, which I encourage you to do with a sincere, heart and mind, and so on. But it seems to me that what happened was, it wasn't the Quran in any way, shape that pushed you back. Rather, it revealed the psychology of what you're against, which is you're against the abuse of women, right?
No, it's not that. It wasn't that.
Abuse of women in any way, marriage.
No, like I say, that the first thing would have been the crack, but there was a flood behind it.
What's
Yeah,
the
and
what?
after that, it was like, oh, the rest of it is like, oh wow, this isn't.
Well, you didn't get to the rest of it
No, no, we
because,
didn't. No, no.
and the flood didn't come from the Quran. The flood came from outside sources, which you trust is true. And that's, I think that is it's a tall tale sign of how you're going about and conducting your research, which is, I don't think it's fair to you. You know what I'm saying? I think that you're doing yourself a massive disservice by getting socially influenced by everything that's around you. And I think also that that's why you chose the path that you chose, because just like a buffet, you're able to say, oh, I like this, I don't like this, and I'm going to make my own way. And I'm trying to tell you that if you're going to look at Islam for Islam, then look at Islam for Islam, but don't look at it through the lens of, some backwash interpretation without understanding. I mean, if that subject really, if that was the crack that really sealed it in for you, which I can just imagine you going down a rabbit hole and fishing for what supported that flood. I don't think that's fair to do for yourself, dude. I really don't. Yeah. What
Yeah,
came
I
afterwards?
see your position. But from my perspective, I didn't have any faith in any god directly, so I couldn't say, yeah, yeah, of course, I believe that. So I did come to look at these things. Only starting to look at these things a few months ago when the conflict in Gaza sort of kicked off.
Fair enough.
I had a very superficial knowledge of Islam before that, and
Fair.
then I picked up, like I would pick up any book, any piece of scripture, and say, what is this about? What is the truth in this? How can I come to an understanding of the wisdom in this? Because there
Fair.
has to be some. 1.6 billion people don't follow a belief in a book because it's ridiculous. That's
2.2 now, bro. No,
oh
just
yeah,
kidding.
well, yeah, whatever. So yeah, I came to it with that kind of spirit of, where's the wisdom in this? Where's
Okay.
the truth?
Yeah.
Um, and it was at different points where I could say, yeah, to me, this doesn't land as true, true with a capital T. Um, I don't believe Muhammad was, receiving revelation from God. That's
Mhm.
just my view on it. And, we're going to always disagree on that, I'm afraid.
I don't know, bro. I think if we were to unpack why you think that way, I can guarantee you that I would find flaw in your reasoning. So, like, why do you believe that he wasn't receiving revelation?
I think that'd be a difficult one to answer. I think you could probably write a book on that.
I mean, well, there's got to be something that's a nail in the coffin where you were like, hey, I'm really certain, you know, like you
I'd
haven't
say,
even, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'd say it was generally the life of Muhammad.
So have you read his biography?
No,
Come on, man.
I've read the Hadith though, some of the Hadith, and yeah,
But some of the hadith, that's not.
we do come to an understanding about someone's character without having read every piece of information about them, I think.
No, but the hadith that you read, man, the hadith that you read, I guarantee you are the things that people would find controversial, right?
Yeah, a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, then there you
But
go.
you,
Dude.
you,
You
you
haven't
take
read
you take
anything in
both
the
sides,
Bible,
don't you? Have you
huh?
not read them as well, though?
No, there's certain elements that, for example, look here. I have one of the books here. I have the Sealed Nectar under here, but it's stacked. I don't want to carry on. But there's a here. Pick this book up.
The Prophet of Islam. Okay, the biography.
It's a 2-volume book. Okay, it has great detail in it. From every it's probably one of the most beautifully composed books. I'm still in the process of reading this particular volume set, so I'm on page 169, 170 on this set. But brother, you, and I say this with all due respect, like reading a few hadith or reading what you would classify as a good amount of hadith, to think that you have a picture on his life is really a disservice to someone who is the most documented man alive in history, right? The most documented person in history. For you to say that I have a couple of hadith that or a few hadith and
Oh, that wouldn't be my in a courtroom. That wouldn't be my position of, oh, I've read a couple of hadith and I don't like them. It would be, I've read a few of the hadith. I've read around them. I've read, the vast majority of the Quran. I've been to speak to Muslims. I've been to speak and heard their apologetics. I've watched hours and hours and hours of videos of people making these comments to, sheikhs, and then them make a defense of it, and me just think the defense isn't good enough. It's just weak. So that I haven't done it on the account of, you know, spuriously saying, "Oh, I didn't like that part, so it mustn't be true."
yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. That's not how I've come to my position. I've spoken to people like yourselves. I've spoken to other sort of Dawa groups. I've been to speak to people in person. I've
Brother,
spoken.
why don't you just do me a favor, pick, if you want to do
Okay,
a book study,
I will pick that up. Yeah, I will.
I genuinely think you will, right? I believe you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I will do.
If
Yeah.
you want to do a book study on it right after Ramadan, when I'm done with this Quran series, dude, I will happily read this, right? And I will post the recording so you can hold me accountable. But basically, what you're telling me is you gathered your thought process after hearing a bunch of other people talk about subjects which were controversial and seemingly controversial, and you weren't happy with the responses that you were given. But you can't be happy with them because you're looking at this from a perspective of this is not a messenger of God and he did not have communication with God. That's the issue. The issue is that if you were to read about this man and you saw how he truly conducted himself and you saw everything that he went through in his life, okay, and then you came to the conclusion, the honest conclusion, that there's a possibility that indeed there is a messengership here. Then you took a look at the products, which is the Quran. And I can assure you that if you were to read the Quran alone, just alone, even without the seed of the Prophet, it would give you a different insight. And I'm not talking about just reading, a great majority of it, which, and again, I love you, dude, but I don't think you read the great majority of it with a sincere heart. I'm going to give you a little bit of credit that you read a little bit of it. But if you're someone who's very scientifically minded and empirically minded, and you want to study kind of history, like from a historic perspective, then start with who this person was, okay? And then move on to the products of the revelation coming down to him. Because if you don't know who the messenger is, which is the closest thing in this reality that you can test, everything else for you is just going to fall apart, dude. And you're going to get influenced by, there's no need to talk to Dawa groups. There's no need to do anything, because from our perspective, right? And again, I say this with all due respect to you, but you are completely lost, and you have no ability to duplicate what you seem as truth to the wide world in order to impact everybody to be upon what you believe is this truth, so that everybody benefits and has a end goal, right? Meaning that what's happening is you're making a preconceived judgment based on your experiences from talking with different groups, but you're electing to avoid the primary sources. And I don't think you should do that. I don't think it's fair to you or any type of academic scholarship or any type of like genuine truth seeking work. And I think you're more than capable of listening to what's in this book rather than me or anybody else, because these scholars and these authors are far more knowledgeable than the dais that you would talk to, right? And remember, it's not our job to convince you. All that I can share with you personally, me personally, all that I can share with you is the resources that I have, which are also accessible to you. The difference is our approach of sincerity towards them. Like if you were to, give me the resources on Buddhism, of course I would approach them. And I'm not saying that there aren't truths in there or there's not wisdoms in there for self-improvement, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is, what is the ultimate reality if God does indeed exist, and is he gonna hold us accountable, and to what standard? And it's not my standard or your standard, it's his standard. And that's the thing. So like, I really think that you're doing yourself a massive disservice, dude. And I think you're a bright guy, and I'm not trying to butter you up in any way. I really think that you're going about it all wrong, man. And I'm you can still carry on down the road that you want. It's not going to impact me one bit,
Oh,
but
absolutely. Yeah, I know that.
yeah,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? But it's like, if
absolutely. Yeah.
I really feel like I'm upon truth, it's incumbent on me to share it with you. But again, in the Quran, we're told we can just deliver the message, and it's up to you if you want to
Mhm.
go forward with it or not. I'm
In
not
the
going to
Zen,
sit here and try to
yeah,
convince
in,
you.
in the Zen school, we there's something in the Diamond Sutra. We take it's the Platform Sutra. We take something called the Bodhisattva vow, which is you pledge to return to help enlighten all beings,
Mm-hmm.
um, as a term of absolute compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started reading the Quran, I'd already had the experience of Satori. I was upon truth, and I read the Quran with the view of not dismantling it or looking at it as, in some kind of polemic kind of way. It was to look for gems of truth and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't look upon it as I'm going to discover the truth here. I'm going to find out whether Muhammad was the messenger of God.
The
I
water
already knew.
part.
I already knew that he wasn't.
Well, see, that's the thing. So, and like I said, remember the criteria is having an open mind. But here's, you know, here's what you're telling me. You've got no concept of justice. You've got no system of accountability. You have no knowledge of what's in the afterlife. You have no evidences of communication from this system of karma. You have no product of these experiences of nirvana. You have nobody that returned back and said, here, this is how it is for certain. There's just so many things that are missing. And then now you're saying, I'm upon truth. But then when I explore your truth a little bit, you say, well, this school of thought has this and this school of thought has that. But all of those guys
Hmm.
experience you called it Satori. All of those guys experience that form of Satori, but they're not in your way. Meaning that now you have multiple paths. Every single one of them could potentially be correct. And then every single one of them has their own kind of, I don't want to call it a repercussion, but I want to call it something similar to a repercussion of what they're choosing. And none of them are certain. They're all following conjecture. and it just sounds really good. I don't
Yeah,
know,
well,
man.
the Buddha put it this way: you're on one shore and you're trying to reach the other shore, and the Dharma, the teaching, is a raft to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need all the raft to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have all the parts in front of you in terms of, you know, the teachings, and to cross to the other side. Yeah, your sense of it and your understanding of it is good enough. And ironically, when you get to the other side, you realize you didn't need the raft at all.
Yeah,
Um,
see, to me, it just seems like you're your own God. It seems like you're following your own desires, and that you, whatever conclusion you get to, you're basically saying at the end, well, that was the conclusion that was meant for me, and there's nothing I could have done either for or against it. And now I'm just going to restart the cycle to go on to another endless conclusion. To me, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me, especially if I were to ask you, why do you believe what the Buddha said?
I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't believe what the Buddha said when I entered into
No, but
Buddhism.
why do you believe it now? Like, why do you believe it now?
Um, the goal of meditation is mystical experience, and once you've
Okay.
had that experience, that's the direct pointing. Is just go and see for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, but how can I trust that experience? I mean, you've got people that, they chant to, and they have mystical experiences, and they're,
Mhm.
out doing other things that are just, that it has no, there's no truth to it. There's no objective truth to it. There is just the own person's subjective experience, and we have to take their word for it.
Same with
How?
Muhammad.
No.
It was his subjective experience, and we have to take his word for it.
No, bro. There's witnessings to him receiving revelation from other people. You
Sounds
have
like a convulsion.
no, they're not convulsions. See, that's
It
the
sounds
thing.
like one though. In the text, it sounds like it.
No, it's not. That's not how they described it at all.
That he
It,
fell down and sweated through his brow and looked like he
no,
was
he
in
didn't
kind of
fall
pain.
down. He didn't fall down. So okay, so like for example, you have
But yeah, anyway, that we're getting to the specifics. The point would be that his Muhammad's experience, he came and said, "I've witnessed an angel," and then someone else told him it was Jibril, and that's his experience, his subjective experience. So when he brings that back to the people, he says, "Oh, I've had this experience," and they say, "Oh, okay," and then they believe him.
so do you believe that these people didn't witness uh, things happening in their own life over the course of 23 years of this revelation? Do you
Witness
think
what?
that they didn't witness, like, when there was wars happening, or when there was change happening with people, or the fact that he just survived for as long as he did in a in and do you think they didn't witness a man basically going from what I would call a state of non-existence, in a sense that, they knew who he was as far as like the tribal stuff, and they knew him as an honest person and so on, to basically uh, having Islam go all over the world? Do you think they didn't witness that? I mean, to me, I think you're really discounting what happened. I think you're under this impression that, like, bam, he received revelation, and then, bam, like, he just, everybody just took his word for it without actually seeing things
Oh no,
unfold.
not everybody did take his word for it. You know, many people said, "No, this is
Yeah,
nonsense." Like the Jews at the time said, "No, we don't believe this," and they fought him. And a lot of the poets at the time criticized him, and he had them killed.
yeah.
Um,
Well, okay, I wouldn't necessarily jump to that, right? I wouldn't jump to criticism equals death. I think that we have to explore, so like that's like not an okay statement to say, because
oh,
that's,
sorry, I read. Yeah, I'm sure
you know,
there were different circumstances
yeah, yeah, I would say,
beyond what I just said. You know,
yeah. So I would say that all these people, both his enemies and his companions, witnessed Islam and witnessed the revelation, whether or not it was directly or indirectly. So, like, for example, his companion Abu Bakr directly witnessing the revelation, his other companions directly witnessing the revelations come down. Whether
But
that be,
no one saw Jibril.
they saw him
No
in
one,
human form.
sorry,
They saw him in human form.
but they didn't recognize him as an angel.
Right, but the Prophet ﷺ explained who that was. Of course, they didn't recognize him as an angel. They recognized him as a human being. How could you recognize someone as an angel when you've never seen an angel before?
Well, I
Right?
wouldn't know.
Recognition would be like, I've seen it before, so now I recognize it, you know? So I think, and I think you're missing the point.
Well, let's say, for example, you saw me speaking to somebody. Someone came in here, and then they left, and then you said, "Oh, who was that?" I said, "Oh, that was the angel of the Lord."
Mhm.
Would
Okay.
you take it for? Would you take that on that merit?
No, because that's
No.
not what happens situationally. That's not what happens situationally. So, for example, at the time that they saw Jibril in human form, they saw that it was a traveler that they've never seen. Remember, contextually
Stranger,
speaking,
yeah.
villager, that's a stranger. They've never seen him, no marks of travel on him. And now he's sitting across the prophet and questioning the prophet and then giving him the answers. Right? So now, if you were claiming to be a prophet and time went by, and I saw other circumstances of you receiving revelation, such as whether it be sweat or beads or people asking you questions and then revelation coming out of your mouth to give the answer. Okay. Like for the thing that I covered earlier in this chapter, the reading on towards one of the ends of the surahs in regards to, I think it was
Sorry,
in.
I missed that. I only
No, it's okay. It's fine. It'll be uploaded. But point being is there was questions that was asked of the Prophet, ﷺ, and he would respond with revelation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they see a man come in whom they've never seen before, who had no marks and yada, 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 yada. And if you've been walking with this person for, say, 7 or 8 years, and now you're seeing the results of everything that he's putting down, and then that person were to say, oh, that was an angel, and he came to teach you about your religion, then you would believe. Right? It's not just me looking at you and seeing a random guy and me not knowing you and then saying, hey, that was an angel of the Lord. Of course I wouldn't believe that. Nobody would believe that. People would think you're crazy.
Mm-hmm. But I think if Muhammad was here today, you would probably think he was crazy.
No, I wouldn't. Because I would see the product of his work. He's not here today, and I don't think he's crazy because I see everything that he has left behind.
He didn't perform any miracles, did he?
Of course he did.
Which ones?
Well, the ones that are mentioned Quranically, you have the splitting of the moon. You
He
also
didn't do
have
that, though, did he?
water coming from his hands. Huh?
The water coming from his hand and the splitting of the moon. The splitting of the moon we could have a debate on in terms of how reliable is that as actually having happened.
Okay.
Would you
So here,
would your position be that the people were perceived that the moon split, or that the moon actually split in half? Because if the moon did actually split in half,
yeah, the Quran states that it's split in half.
Other people around the world would have seen that.
They did. You have reports from kings in India that saw it.
Could you direct me to those? Not heard of those.
I can give it. I can put it in the chat. It's no problem.
Oh,
but
thank you.
Let me encourage you in this way. Why not just look at the miraculous nature of the Quran? How is it possible that an unlettered man could compose something like this had it not been from God?
Oh, it's impressive.
It's very impressive. So especially the linguistics and the language that's used, the intricacies and the details. Like
I'm told by some Arabic speakers that it's not as poetic as it's made out to be. That a lot of the rhyming is kind of like we were jumping and then we were skipping and doing. It's kind of that kind of rhyming going on. But that was their position. I'm not an Arabic speaker.
Okay. Well, let me show you.
Like I say, I went to the Quran to look for the beauty and the and the.
Yeah, but you can't find it. You can only find a minimal version of it in Arabic. So let me give you an example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the Arabic. I'm going to give you the conditions of why I believe that it's miraculous. Here, this was from the International Journal of the Book, It's a composition, oral and written traditions, and the preservation of the authenticity of the Quran by Qasim Rendari. And here is just the linguistic structure. Just the linguistic structure. This is a couple pages in on page 12 of this writing. It says, the frequency of rhetorical features in the Quran is unparalleled, surpassing any Arabic text, classical or modern. This includes analogy, and he provides references, Quran 88:15-16, 93:9-10, alliteration, and I'm going to skip the references for you, but just know that it's all there. You have analogy, you have alliteration, you have antiphrases, you have antithesis, you have ascendenton, you have assonance, you have cadence, you have chiasmus, you have epizexis, you have equivoque, you have homonyms, you have hyperboles, you have isocolons, you have metaphors, you have metonymy, you have parentheses, you have polypton, you have rhetorical questions, stress, syndicate, and syndicate being the last one.
I
Now,
would
you
expect to
explain-
find those in every book of any decent book.
Okay.
So those are just grammatical.
Yes, but here's what you're missing. Now, find me a book that was composed. Actually, I don't want to use the composed. Find me a recitation. Find me a recitation, because the Quran is a recitation that was composed by an illiterate individual that hits all of these. I mean, you gotta look at the circumstances.
Yeah, I suppose the circumstances to me, if I were to look at it from my perspective, would be, this is the man was wealthy. He married a woman who was extremely wealthy.
Okay.
He was in a position of power, and he cemented that power because he had revelation. He was then able to have a following of people, including poets, writers, whatever.
Okay.
And he's dictating it to them. And in some ways, I imagine they might be helping him. Certainly one of his scribes did leave him, saying that, I said these things to Muhammad, and then he's saying that it's a revelation.
Okay. So now let's put it in perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it will be a remarkable work, especially for someone who would.
This is why I say you need to read the biography of the Prophet, because if you're saying that his quest was for power, you're wrong. Because there's been instances where the tribes and the tribal leaders at the time, when he was receiving revelation at the beginning, and they recognized that there's something going on here and they have to put a stop to this man. And they said, we'll give you whatever you want. We'll give you money. We'll give you kingdom. We'll give you dominion. And he told them that if you gave me the sun in one hand and the moon in another one, I wouldn't accept it from you.
He wanted it all, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're saying that he wanted it all and absolutely all. Now, I want you to imagine a situation where you are facing legions, and with confidence, you're looking at them dead in the eye and saying, there's nothing you can do to me, and I'm going to take it all from you.
Mm-hmm.
And he survived for 23 years.
Yeah, he won, yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me that that's not miraculous at all.
No, it's not. It's not that it's not impressive, but I'm saying, yeah, it's not
Very
miraculous.
impressive.
Not in the sense that you're talking about. No, it's not miraculous in that sense.
No. Okay. So, and I think what's happening is you're not giving credit where credit is due. Okay, because if somebody was being hunted and had nothing and left with nothing, by the way, he died with like nothing, right? Like 6 items to his name because he gave it all away. Like one of them was like a toothbrush, like a miswak, a little sandal, a sword, and even like the clothing that he was wearing was donated. So it doesn't make sense to me that you would say that he's after power when you have records of him never accepting gifts, immediately donating to charity,
Mhm.
barely ever cooking in his house, surviving on nothing but dates and water for months at a time. This is not the signs of someone who is after power and riches and glory.
Someone who says, you cut his head off in front of me, that's power.
No. See, here's the thing. When you make a claim like that, where are you getting that from?
From those sites that you're talking about and the people and who've mentioned these things. And I'm
Where?
sure I've heard that. I'm sure I've heard that where he said, cut his head up, behead him in front of me, kind of thing.
No, bro.
Right now,
See,
get rid of him.
I'm
That's
sorry,
power.
man.
That's power. The idea of having a gold toothbrush or a room full of treasures. That's not power.
Well, you said that he wanted riches, spoils, he wanted everything. Okay. But his actions don't line up to what you're saying. And you're just pulling something out of thin air and saying, I could have probably maybe have heard him say something of something like that. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
fly.
yeah, yeah. It's not. I'm not doing.
Well,
We're not.
don't do that. Don't do that, dude. Don't do
Okay.
that. Bring it up with certainty and then we can chat about it. Otherwise, like, you're just, don't do that. Otherwise, you're just coming across as disingenuous. It's not cool. And that's fair to
Yeah.
say.
Sorry, I thought we were having a conversation. I didn't realize we were. I didn't want to put the thing on trial.
No, man, you should. That's why I'm encouraging you that you should. But and that's the thing is I don't have anything to hide. But right now you're speaking from ignorance, and it's not fair. This
I'm not speaking. I'm
conversation
not. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't say I was speaking from ignorance. I'd say I was
you
speaking
are. You're speaking
outside of
from
a scholarly way, certainly. And I didn't bring you any evidence of what I just said, so I
no,
couldn't.
no.
Couldn't back it up
I'm saying you're
right
speaking
now.
from ignorance because you don't know who you're talking about.
Oh,
You're
okay.
just I'm not saying that as an insult to you. I'm saying that to you with all due respect that it's very unfair for me to have this conversation with you when
Mm-hmm.
we are not on the same level of our knowledge. So if you were to tell me or make claims about the Prophet ﷺ, and then I ask you, have you read about him? And you go, no, I've only heard about him from outside sources, and I've read a few hadith that I disagree with. It's not fair for me to, be constantly correcting you when I tell you, like, trust me, just pick up the book. We can read
Okay.
it together.
So that never happened.
What do you mean that never happened?
What I just said about someone being beheaded in front of him at his request.
I don't know. It's such an ambiguous and vague claim, bro, that you would have to tell me what's the context. Was there a treaty broken? Were they at war? What is going on? Because remember, here's what I mean by that. When I tell you that you don't know him, what his fatherhood was like, what his military command was like, what his business dealings was like. So when you're talking about someone being beheaded, you are now touching up on multiple subjects of his: arbitration, jurisprudence, military command. So if you were to tell me, was there ever a time that he beheaded somebody? I can't say no. There probably is a time that he beheaded somebody, or even said this person needs to be beheaded. But now, meaning he issued the command of the beheading. But now we have to go.
Yeah,
And
that was my point. That was my point. That's power. So that's
okay,
the attraction of someone who wanting to do something in a particular way or claim that
yeah,
they had revelation.
okay,
That would be the attraction of power. Real
okay,
power.
okay.
So
But is there a consequence for what he's doing? Meaning, is he saying I can just behead anybody that's against me, period?
I didn't say it was an unreasonable
Well,
thing to do.
you're
I said it was
presenting it as such. That's the issue.
no,
The
no,
issue.
no. That's in your mind. I just
No,
said it's
that's
about
not
power. Whoa,
different.
Maurice, come on.
I'm
I said it
calm.
was
Trust
about
me, I'm
power.
calm.
I said it was about power. So the attraction of someone who's interested in power is different from someone who's interested in material wealth.
Okay, fair enough. So if he's
That's
interested
the
in
point I was
power,
trying to make.
why don't you read the sections in the Quran that he says all power belongs to God?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. No
Okay,
one
so,
would deny
so
that.
there you go. So if he's saying all power belongs to God and I have to succumb to God's rule, then God has
Mhm.
set forth criteria for him in order to conduct certain things like executions. Yes?
Yeah, if he was just after worldly power through those means, he wouldn't point to God at all. He would have just been a warlord. but he did point to God, so he would have to say, I'm being told from a higher power.
Right.
And that's
But
the authority that
did
I'm
this
taking.
higher power give any restrictions from him or reprimand him at times or do
Oh,
anything
sure.
back?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so then that's my point. My point is that now he's using that as a form of authority. Now, what you're saying is he wasn't looking after worldly power. I thought your whole position was that he was looking after worldly power and that he's not really talking about God, meaning that he is not communicating with God, doesn't have any form of revelation. Rather, he just wants worldly power.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm trying to tell you that he pointed to something else having power. And he also pointed to that something else holding him accountable and that
Yeah.
he doesn't get through, willy nilly.
Yeah. It'd be as an outside authority, he would call upon the omnipotent God as to say, this is my backup. This is where I'm getting my authority from through these revelations. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense as a religion. It wouldn't make sense as a faith. So when he's saying, I'm getting revelations from God, that's his basis for his authority.
Right. But you're saying that because he's claiming that he's getting revelation from God, he can now do whatever he wants willy nilly, right?
Within reason, yeah, because obviously he'd be constrained by circumstance, yeah.
No, come on, man. If it's within reason, what do you mean within reason? You're saying that he's after power. His
Yeah.
reasons are moot. He's after power, and he's always going to say, "Hey, I'm pointing to God. I'm pointing to God."
Yeah, if he were to say, right, you Abu Bakr, come with me, we're going to go and take Jerusalem, and because we've got God on our side, it'll only take us two. That would be unreasonable. He wouldn't
Right.
have said that.
Okay. So then now he's not speaking of himself, because if he was speaking of himself and he was interested in conquering the world, he would have started to do that.
They did, though, didn't they?
No. No, man. Okay, see, this is what I'm saying. Even the Quran claims that if Muhammad ﷺ did anything against what God said, his right aorta would have been severed. He would have seized them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have seized him by the hand and cut his aorta.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So point being is that if he just decided to go about willy-nilly and wanting to conquer a bunch of places, then
That's what I mean. He wasn't a madman.
Okay,
He
but
wasn't someone that you would commit in who says, "Oh yeah, I'm Napoleon." Not like that. But there are so many of those people around.
yeah, but here, here's what's happening is now you're really starting to not make sense, because a madman would claim that a madman would want power and he would use God as a justification. Because remember, your whole position is he's not talking to God. He
Mm-hmm.
is just hearing voices in his head.
No,
And
that's
now,
not my position.
okay, so where's the revelation coming from?
I think he's made it up.
So he's hearing voices in his head.
No, I think he's made it up.
Okay, so his consciousness is telling him that the revelation is there.
No, I think he's deliberately made it up. I think he's fraud.
Okay. And how do you justify that?
Because he wasn't insane.
Okay, but no, okay, but you're now jumping. I want you to justify how did this fraudulently come about? Here's the Quran. How did it fraudulently come about?
I think he had experiences.
So he's hearing voices.
No, not hearing voices. Not.
Don't pull at hairstrings, dude. I think you and I have established enough of a relationship where we don't have to pull at hairstrings.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do I think? I think he probably had some kind of experiences, of which we won't say what they are.
Okay, fair enough. So he had some type of experiences, and now
Some kind of naturalistic experience, let's say. So someone who
experience.
Yeah, a natural experience of an ordinary person, and he's taken that and thought, this is a revelation from God, and he's made.
So he was nuts.
No, that's not nuts.
To link the two, there has to be some type of cognition going on. So he is linking his personal experience to saying, at least this is what your claim is he's saying now, this is from God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's cognition going on, and there's faulty wiring going on right there from your point of view.
To a degree. I think there was also
Hey
at some
man,
point,
small degree, big
I
degree.
think it may have
You're
turned
claiming,
to self-interest.
yeah, okay, small degree, big degree of miswiring. You're basically claiming that he's a brick short of a full house, right?
No.
Well, what's it going to be, dude? Either he composed the works himself and was fully capable and had the knowledge and the ability to write and all this other stuff, or he really is having some type of an experience and he's now linking it to God. And you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think yeah. I'm trying to determine as to how, in Muhammad's mind, how far he would have thought that this was God.
Forget about what's in his mind. This is about what's your understanding. And here, this is what I'm saying. You're just shotgunning things, and you don't know. You're
Oh, of
just
course, I don't know. No, I don't know.
yeah.
I
Well, you're
couldn't.
claiming, and then you're reinforcing your claim on the spot. And I love you, but you gotta just pick up a copy. We'll read it together, and we'll revisit the subject. So write
If
it
I
down.
read that, will you read something for me?
I mean, if it's beneficial, sure, why not? But what is this? The Greek Alexander romance. Here, let me write it down. You know what's funny? In the Quran, it literally tells us they want you to compromise. They'll give you 50-50. You know that? Okay, hang on one sec. Let me hold on here. I had one on my notepads. Okay, so sorry, what was it called? The Greek romance?
The Greek Alexander romance.
Sorry, the Greek Alexander. Okay. I'll put it on my list, but promise me that you'll pick it up.
What's the title of yours?
Yeah.
I'll write it down.
It's called The Prophet of Islam,
The Prophet of Islam.
and it is by Dr. Mahdi Rizqullah.
Dr. Mahdi Rizhullah Ahmed.
It's 2 volumes.
Okay, I'll order that.
Cool. Anyway, it was a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah,
I
you
could
too.
spend hours, but I need to sleep.
Oh, of course, yeah, it's late for you, isn't it? Yeah, sorry.
3 hours and hate myself tomorrow. So, but anything fi sabilillah, I appreciate your patience and your cordiality. Stay away from the Islamophobic websites, man. Look at the primary sources yourselves. That way we can have a nice constructive conversation like we had, right? I would still consider our conversation good. I appreciate your cadence and your cordiality. And, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all to the truth.